Something happened in Washington today that no one expected, and the moment it hit, the entire conversation about the Epstein Files shifted. Suddenly, decades of secrecy looked like they might finally be dragged into the light. One amendment, just a few lines. But it was enough to send a shockwave through the halls of power, because for the first time, someone with real authority said the quiet part out loud. Release everything. Not summaries, not filtered excerpts, not the sanitized versions we've been handed before. Everything. And this moment didn't happen in a back room or a closed-door briefing. It happened on camera, openly, unapologetically. You could feel the jolt across the room before the reporters even had time to react.
Be held accountable. My colleague from Oregon, Senator Ron Wyden, and the Senate Finance Committee have been investigating Mr. Epstein's financial network for the last 3 years. The Biden administration fully cooperated with the Senate investigators on that case. The Finance Committee staff went to the Treasury Department to see the Epstein files and suspicious activity reports. Democrats understood that this was an ongoing investigation. We applauded the Biden administration for cooperating, and that was the right course. But now we're under a different administration. Instead of cooperating, the Trump administration is obstructing. The Trump administration and Attorney General Bondi are refusing to cooperate, and they are refusing to investigate further. They're simply saying 2 words: case closed. Case closed? When they have their hands on information potentially regarding dozens or hundreds of individuals who abused young women. So today we had a chance to vote on whether the case is closed. We had before us an amendment which said, deliver the files. Great, the force of law, deliver the files. And 51 senators in this body, I am ashamed to say, said, hell no. We want them kept secret. We want to protect the perpetrators. Why? Because the man in the Oval Office, Mr. Trump, told us he wants us to protect those files, does not want them public. On July 17th, the Wall Street Journal reported on a letter allegedly written by Trump to Epstein as part of a birthday book for his 50th birthday in 2003. The letter is signed at the bottom, Donald. It features a drawing of a woman's body with very suggestive text. I debated putting that letter up. There's a chart of it in the door behind me, but it's already been made public. The public has seen it. I find it profoundly offensive letter. And as I passed by a stack of newspapers today, I saw a series of examples of Donald Trump's signature because Trump has said to the world, it's not my signature. But of course, the experts say that's not true. The birthday book contains another photo of Mr. Epstein holding an oversized novelty check from DJ Trump for $22,500. What is that check for? Underneath the photo, taken in the 1990s, a handwritten note says, quote, Jeffrey showing early talents with money and women. Sells fully depreciated, and then there's a name of a woman who's been blocked out to Donald Trump for $22,500. I don't know if a woman was sold to Donald Trump for $22,500. I don't know what it means to call a woman fully depreciated. I don't know if it was just kind of a brazen joke between a couple of very powerful men, but it's certainly not a funny joke. It certainly implies and suggests a camaraderie in the idea that young women are for sale. On July 15th, House Speaker Mike Johnson told CNN, we should put everything out there and let the people decide it. Well, actions are more powerful than words. The words were, we should put everything out there. The action was he adjourned the House of Representatives early for August recess to avoid voting on release of the files. Well, the House is back in session now. So I call on Speaker Mike Johnson to stand up for the principle carved above those pillars on the Supreme Court, equal justice under law, hold a vote in the House of Representatives on release of the files. The leader of the Senate told Fox News, I always am a believer in transparency. I think more is always better. Today we voted on transparency, and the vote from across the aisle was case closed, no transparency, no accountability. I certainly agree with the sentiment. It's time to put everything out there. The American people have been clear. They want these files released because they still treasure the idea that possibly powerful people in this chamber actually believe in the principles that we were raised on here in the United States of America of equal justice under law, that nobody is above the law. Still cherish that little seed of hope that maybe when we have a vote in this chamber, 100 senators will say, hell yes. But today, they were crushed because the majority said, hell no. Seal the file, protect the president, protect the powerful. To hell with justice for the victims, the young women who were so impacted, devastated by the activities of Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. The American people know better. They demand transparency. They demand accountability. They demand justice. The victims demand transparency. The victims demand accountability. And the victims demand justice. And we had a chance to deliver it today, and we failed them. My bill, which was introduced as the amendment by Senator Schumer, requires the Attorney General to release all materials and records related to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, including the flight and travel records, the names of individuals, the names of businesses and nonprofits and other organizations, any immunity deals, any non-prosecution agreements, any plea bargains, any settlements, internal Department of Justice communications about decisions to charge or not charge those involved, all communications about attempts to conceal information or documents, and any documentation related to Mr. Epstein's.
The message was unmistakable. The era of hiding behind excuses, investigations, and endless redactions has officially hit a wall. And the person pushing this forward isn't doing it for headlines. He's doing it because the pressure has become impossible to ignore. When he announced that he had filed an amendment ordering the Attorney General to release the full, unfiltered Epstein archive, it wasn't presented as a request. It was delivered as a mandate from the American people. Democrats, Republicans, independents, everyone who has watched this case get twisted, delayed, manipulated, and protected for decades understood the weight of that moment. And that's why the room fell silent. This wasn't political theater. It was an ultimatum. Show the truth. What makes this moment even more explosive is how these files have been treated like radioactive evidence for years. Agencies have claimed ongoing investigations. Lawyers have cited privacy concerns. Committees have shrugged and blamed jurisdiction. And every time someone inches toward the truth, a brand new obstacle conveniently appears, almost as if the system itself is engineered to keep the door locked. But today, that door finally shook on its hinges, and the timing matters. Reporters immediately asked why this push didn't happen earlier, when certain officials had more leverage. The answer was blunt. The lies, distortions, and noise have spun so far out of control that transparency is now the only option left. In just the past few months, we've seen fake sketches, doctored images, and entire narratives manufactured out of thin air. It's chaos by design. A storm built to distract from the real question: who benefited from Epstein's silence? That's why this amendment hits so hard. It cuts through the smokescreen and says, release every page. Let the public decide. No filters, no curated disclosures, no political protection. Because if the truth is harmless, why spend decades burying it? Not everyone is happy. Some lawmakers immediately labeled the amendment hostile, warning it could disrupt unrelated negotiations. But think about that. If transparency threatens your agenda, what does that say about your agenda? If releasing documents from a criminal case is considered dangerous, who exactly is in danger? That question hung in the room like smoke. But the most fascinating twist is the pressure this puts on the Attorney General. For over a year, she's been criticized for her political ties and her reluctance to touch anything connected to this case. Now, there's no middle ground. Either she releases everything, or she becomes the face of yet another cover-up. And both options come with consequences. If she releases the files, she unleashes the largest trove of documents tied to one of the darkest scandals in modern history. If she refuses, she validates every suspicion about why this case has remained buried. Either way, the nation will be watching.